Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Ben Crossman, and I hope all of you are having a wonderful day. And, hey, you come off the weekend feeling strong, feeling ready, and having seen the latest Marvel Avengers movie because according to box office numbers, they've accounted for everyone on Earth, and everyone has seen it. So while we're not going to give spoilers today, we will just say that we did go see it, and we're waiting for our first correspondent to come on and tell us what they thought of it. Because as is long-standing tradition here on the show, we tell you to not listen to opinions, and then we bombard you with as many opinions as we possibly can. So, we'll cover that a bit later as, it gets some, has some playtime, and then we'll talk about the Avengers and all that kind of stuff. But in the meantime, everyone, again, thank you for joining us here on Computer America. We're going to have a lot of fun today because in the second part of the show, we are going to be doing computer and technology news, and that is a segment that is entirely dedicated to catching you up, making sure that you are informed of some of the bigger news stories that we have, including, things like, a lot of people are talking about the fact that France has seized France.com from the French, and that is, of course, a pretty big story, talking about should there have been compensation or the like. Other stories that, I think we have one about Comcast. I think AMD is testing out some new 7-nanometer processors, always a good thing. And again, we're just going to have fun with it. But we're going to have more fun with our first part of our show because we are going to, as is usual, we will be having a guest on the program to talk about what they do and how they do it. And I'm excited about this one because it's 3D printing, but it's, I take it back. I'm sorry, not 3D printing. 3D laser printer. Obviously, every time I see the term 3D, it's either going to be about glasses or printing. So this is something a little bit different, but obviously is already insanely popular. And hey, it's going to be really, really cool. So a couple things to mention before we get started, including computeramerica.com. That's where you'll find everything and anything for today's show. So be that, the live video feed where you can watch Computer America and not just listen. You can find that at our website. If you want a link to our guest website or any articles that we do, head on over to the front page right there, and you can see it right there. Let's see. And the last thing is the social media contest brought to you by Logitech. And that is ongoing every single Friday. So with all that being said, I think we have kept our guests waiting long enough, and we're just going to jump right into this. So welcome onto the program, Mr. Dan Shapiro. He is the CEO of Glowforge. And Dan, welcome onto the program.
Thank you so much for having me here today.
Our pleasure, our pleasure. So obviously, I've already messed up once. I'm sure I will again. 3D laser printer. This is a pretty cool, obviously, if they're watching the video portion, we're checking out your website. Videos are very, very cool. Before we get into what 3D laser printing is, give us a bit of your background. How did you find yourself, founding this company, and just, where do you come from?
I had a crazy arc. The closest thing I've ever done to this is I put myself through college, in part by building laser shows and selling them over the internet in the late 90s. But I've always been some part software, hardware entrepreneur. Had a couple of companies. I wrote a book called Hot Seat, the Startup CEO Guidebook, to help share my experience and learnings in starting companies and share the stories of some people I knew. So it's really written for folks who are curious about starting their own thing or who are doing that themselves. I sold a company to Google. I spent some time working at Microsoft and Google. I launched a board game called Robot Turtles, which was the most backed board game in Kickstarter history. And in the process of developing that, I discovered this backwater technology that was only used in mid-scale fabrication factories, laser cutting engraving, computer numerically controlled laser cutting engraving. And through one series of events after another, I wound up with this $11,000 industrial carbon dioxide cutting laser imported from China, installed in my garage. And it was really an amazing piece of machinery. It was terrible. The software was horrible. It took me weeks to get it working. But after fighting through the software and the hardware and the alignment and everything else, I realized there was something really special. There was this technology that let me do things that nobody was able to do in their home. And it got me really excited about a world where this promise of being able to make something yourself, being easier and more cost effective and better than having it made in a factory halfway around the world was actually possible. And so when you talk about 3D printing, that was always kind of the promise, was the Star Trek replicator. But the reality was usually plastic blobs made slowly. And so the idea that you could actually print furniture, you could print home goods, you could print art, even food, this was intoxicating. And that's what led me to start this company.
Yeah, and I mean, how many people haven't woken up with an industrial laser engraver in their garage? That's that's the American dream. But it's so I mean, obviously the technology, like you said, it's not about, you didn't have to develop this. It wasn't something that no one had ever heard of before. It was a matter of convenience. It was a matter of getting it into a form that people wouldn't mind having having in their home. It was a matter of packaging it correctly. And I guess after that, kind of telling them or showing them what they could then do with it. So why don't we, of course, talk about your product, Glowforge, name of the company. Glowforge, I also assume, is the name of the product. Talk about what Glowforge actually is.
All right. So you remember 34 odd years ago, Apple took computing out of the data center, and they wrapped it in plastic and glass and put it in a box that you could take home for $24.95, which is granted like $5,500 in today's dollars. What we've tried to do, and what you get with a Glowforge, is that same experience, but instead of pulling computing out of a data center and putting it in a home where the family can use it, we pull the ability to create things out of these factories halfway around the world. We wrap it in plastic and glass, and for as little as $24.95, you can put it on a desk at home, and you can be in the world in which it is actually better and faster and cheaper to create the thing you need and to print it for yourself than it is to buy it from that factory and have it delivered, or to go buy it from a store. When I think back to when I was a kid, when I was 7 years old, my parents scrimped and saved and gave up some furniture so that they could bring home a computer. And it was, okay, so mom's going to use it for work and dad's going to use it to pay taxes, and the kids are going to have access to this technology, which we think is going to be important, but we're not quite sure why, was the thought process my parents went through. I've talked to them about this. And the results are transformative, because we know that life with computing power as something you can take for granted and integrate into your life, and having that experience early, is very different from a world where that's not available. And we are finally moving into a world where you don't have to be a part of a gigantic multinational corporation to create something, or to create lots of things. You don't have to spend years mastering woodworking or paper cutting or other creations to be able to make a leathercraft, to create something that you want to need, or to give it to a friend. You can actually take your inspiration, your ideas, your designs, or creations that you find online or in our premium catalog, and just put in the material, hit print, and get something out of the other side that's amazing. So the Glowforge 3D laser printer is at its heart a robot. And the robot is equipped with a laser, which allows it to cut and engrave a huge variety of natural materials. So think leather, fabric, cardboard, paper, hardwoods, plywood. You can even cut and engrave things like chocolate or edible seaweed. And then you can engrave things like metal or glass. You can engrave glass and it frosts and it looks really incredible. You can engrave iPads. You can engrave river rocks, you name it. And it lets you take just about anything, a photograph, a digital design, something that you find on the internet, something you've created yourself, and transform it into something truly beautiful relatively quickly. Most prints take about 15 minutes.
So, and we're kind of watching it here, very, very, I guess, and I guess my question is because you didn't exactly put down 3D printing, but you said you ended up with a plastic blob kind of deal. At the same time, I have to kind of ask you about what kinds of things are you not that you just intend, but are people actually making with these things? Because, having this technology available to someone is certainly, kind of unique and important, but at the same time, are they going to be making, little desk tchotchkes for the rest of their lives? Like, is that the end game for Glowforge, or do you see this in terms of people who maybe want to start a home business, or is this going to be something that people actually, I hate to put it this way, but actually find useful?
No, I think that's absolutely fair. For years, I loved the idea of 3D printing, but I couldn't really figure out what the things were that I wanted in my life that were made out of plastic. Mm-hmm. Because the way a traditional 3D printer works, it's like a robot with a little hot glue gun. If you remember those from school, and it kind of uses the hot glue gun to like build stuff out of plastic. And so the results are everything's plastic. But what we see our customers have done with their Glowforge is they are creating things that they use and sell and gift in their everyday lives. So that may be model railroad pieces for somebody who collects model railroads. For somebody who's quilting, they cut pieces of fabric with incredible precision down to a few thousandths of an inch so that they can create these beautiful designs that become a part of their quilt. They don't need to be a woodworker to make things like a shelf or desktop like organizers for your desktop inboxes, things to decorate your home like a lamp, or even stools and furniture, because especially with the Glowforge Pro, we have the introductory basic, the mid-level plus, and the premium Pro. With the Pro, you can actually print on giant oversized things and create actual furniture and large-scale projects like this. I'd never done leatherworking in my life. But with a laser, I could go from a raw piece of leather to a wallet that I'd put in my pocket in about an hour with no prior experience. Just a design that after I'd looked at some free designs on the internet, I drew a design with a pen, and voila, there we go. I actually had a wallet that I still have and stands up to everyday use. We're finding that people take whatever it is that excites them and interests them in their lives, whether that be a photo of their dog engraved on their laptop, or whether that be the hobby that they're passionate about, or their work, and putting it to and transforming it with this, because it makes it easy to work in multiple materials, and it makes it easy to scale. Because if you can do one, you can do 100 just by pushing the button 100 times. This is actually born out of mass production techniques, even though it's so easy. You can actually design with literally just a pen. You can, if you want to cut a board in half with a Glowforge, here's how it works. Mm-hmm. You draw a line with your pen, you put it in the Glowforge, you open up the browser to app.glowforge.com, and then you click on the line and hit print. And it will actually cut straight down the line. So now your pen is like a table saw. You can create really intricate drawings. You can use sophisticated design programs like Adobe Illustrator or Photoshop, or unsophisticated software like PowerPoint or Word, and you can save it as a PDF and use that to create something gorgeous and transformative. Of course, you can use high-end CAD software, which is what people who work with 3D printers typically use, but you don't have to. And you can do just about anything with those really much more accessible design tools that you have available.
So I guess the logical question thereafter is, learning CAD, that's certainly something that is a barrier to entry for a lot of people. I mean, it kind of limits them to what's available in some kind of blueprint store, or, kind of download the patterns that you want. Yours sounds a bit more, there are a lot of ways to get an input into Glowforge. What would you say is kind of the learning curve here? Is it, reading the manual, someone's up and running in an afternoon? And you also mentioned that kids can use it, so I'm assuming that obviously with supervision, would you say it's pretty easy to get started using Glowforge?
So most of our customers report, the average time that they report to us is that from the minute they start opening the box until they're holding their first finished print in their hands is 30 minutes. So that's 30 minutes to get it unboxed, plug it in. There's just one button and a power switch, so there's not much to learn there. The software is incredibly simple to get started, although it can support really complicated prints as you learn more and more of its capabilities. And because you can design with just a pen, because you can actually create your drawing on paper or even draw directly onto the material and then print, it's actually really easy for kids to learn. So, of course, you're right, with supervision for kids under the age of 18, you can have kids as young as 5 walk up and draw a puzzle, put it in there, or even just draw a design and you draw the puzzle or take a puzzle design. And it lets you easily join those together. So within 4 minutes, a child's drawing can be turned into a memento etched in hardwood or acrylic that you can keep forever. In fact, we're going to be at Maker Faire Bay Area. We're going to have a bank of 4 machines. And anybody can walk up with a Sharpie that we give them and a piece of paper that we give them, create a design, and walk away with something they've printed themselves. Now, it only takes about 4 minutes. Sometimes the wait can be a little longer as that proves to be very popular, but most of the people who we see using this when we're at these shows are actually kids. And in fact, the product itself is something that scales to the whole family, whether it be the home business or whether it be an artistic outlet, whether it be a hobby, whether it be taking something that was a hobby and transforming that into something you sell on Etsy or eBay because it's easier to scale, or whether it's taking the kid's science project to a whole new level. I have twins who are 9 years old, and my daughter wanted to do a science project about how crisp cookies are as they cool off. So she baked this tray of cookies, ran them over to the table, and then took this contraption, the cookie crispometer, I think she called it, which she designed herself by drawing it on a piece of wood and then using the Glowforge to cut and engrave it, that actually could measure how far the cookie drooped. So she every 30 seconds, put a cookie on and measured how far it drooped. And then for a science project, she had this measuring tool of her own design as a piece of this presentation she did. I will never forget 4 years ago when I was just getting started playing around with this Glowforge in the basement, and my twins confronted me and said, they must have been 5, 6 at the time, and said, "Daddy, can we get an iPad?" And I said, "Well, let's talk about that for your birthday. We can see." And they said, "Daddy, why don't you just go print an iPad?" And I laughed.
Why can't you?
And my first thought was, that's kind of silly. My second thought was, oh my gosh, these are kids who don't see a wall between what they can do and what only factories can do. They don't see a world in which making is a thing reserved for people in giant businesses that's unachievable to them. They see a world where there is a fuzzy line between what they can do and what they need other people to do for them. And I go right back to where my brain was when I was 7 and I got my first computer. And there was this fuzzy line for me where between what I could program for myself when I first learned to program and what I needed to go buy as software from somebody else. And the fact that that line is fuzzy transformed my life. The fact that I looked at every problem not as a helplessness, who do I pay to solve this? But I looked at every problem as every software problem at least is, can I solve this myself? Is this something somebody else needs to solve for me? And the reason that I became an entrepreneur was because I looked at the world through that lens of, can I do this, or can I bring together people to do this myself? And I see that world for my kids. And I see that world for this generation of makers who see an opportunity to look at the world through a lens where they create things. They don't rely on other people to do it for them. And in terms of things I can get excited about, I can't see any greater calling for my passion and the place my life has taken, not just to be able to make something that's cool that I love, but to make something that lets everybody make things that are cool, and that lets everybody make things that they love, and that has the opportunity to transform the way we think about how things are created.
And I'm seeing that more and more, not just from, startups such as yourselves or, just smaller companies, but, and not to call you small, but we're talking things like Nintendo. They recently came out with the Labo. We had talked about that last Friday, and it was the idea that, having something physical, being able to manipulate something, where you have a video game console in your hand and you're able to play software. But then Nintendo said, we need cardboard, and we need, to be able to build a robot backpack and, be able to, play a piano that was made out of cardboard, these kinds of things. I guess just real quickly, and obviously being a father, what have you found is kind of the importance of having things that you can actually, kind of handle in your house? Because like you mentioned, a lot of different things are simply software. They're simply things that you buy, they're made elsewhere, and then you're good to go. Have you found any kind of benefit to, kind of piecing these things together yourself?
I have to say, the world looks different to my kids in the same way that the world looked different to those lucky folks, of whom I was one, who got early access to the computing revolution. For them, everything that they want, they want things just like, kids have since the start of time. But everything they want is a question of, step one, can I do this myself? Step two, can I get my parents to buy it for me? Now, step two has been around for a long, long time. But step one is something our country and used to have here. 100, 200 years ago, if you wanted something, you made it yourself, or you found somebody in your town or neighborhood to make it for you. And the notion of mass production as a far away, something done far away and shipped on container ships across the world is a relatively recent invention. We used to have this ability to do these things for ourselves, and that used to be the way that things got made. And I see an opportunity with technology to bring that back, or at least bring back that balance, where if my daughter wants a new pair of earrings, she just makes it. If she sees a cool stone by the side of the road, she picks it up and says, I'm going to make this into a necklace. And then she might engrave the stone. She might laser cut a setting for it. She may use a different technology. She may go use, Fimo hardening clay, which isn't really technology, right? But something to build it. But because she's been exposed to this experience where it's easy and fast to make something, and then it's easy to say, well, I messed it up. I'm going to throw it away, and I'm going to make another one. I'm going to make another one. That just transforms the way they look at the world. And I can't believe the degree to which that speed and simplicity transforms the way it works. Because if you wanted to make a cardboard piano, like the amazing team at Nintendo did, if you want to make a cardboard piano, you could spend many, many hours, days or weeks, carefully crafting it with a razor blade and scissors if you wanted to invent this yourself. Yeah. And then when you found out that some of the keys rubbed against each other and it didn't quite work, you throw away the whole thing and you start over again. And that's what creating is like when you have to use the simplest of manual tools. But with technology, what that means is you're creating that design. You may still be just drawing it with a pen, but when you print it and it doesn't quite do what you want, you just make the change and print it again. And when each print takes 5 minutes and each change takes 10 minutes, you can go from something that's a harebrained scheme to something that makes people's eyes open and change the way that they think about the world, or the way they think about their Nintendo, or the way that they think about the way they dress. You can do that in the matter of hours. And then when you're done, you can go make one of them for somebody special, or you can make 100 of them to go start a home business, or whatever it is that inspires you. But that speed, that simplicity unlocks possibilities that weren't before possible. I'll tell you, on the far end, I've talked a lot about kids and people who are coming to this with no design skill, but a real passion. On the flip side, one of our customers is a pediatric cardiologist. And there's a surgery that he teaches, and it's a heart surgery that's performed on small children. And the way that you practice doing this surgery is through a kit that costs $2,500. And so it's kind of one of those things where you try to get it right the first time because it's really expensive to try a second time, and then it's straight on to real patients. And he took his Glowforge and he made at least half a dozen prototypes, and finally came up with something where he can print a sample, an example surgical trainer for less than $50, which means that surgeons can practice this surgery as many times as they want before they go into a real patient. Now, that combination of his passion and his calling, of technology, of the ability to go and create things and iterate quickly and to print at low cost and be able to turn out dozens or hundreds of a thing. These all come together in ways that I never would have imagined. I never would have guessed something like that would have or could have happened. But this is what this kind of technology unlocks for us. It's the reason I'm so excited about this product that we're introducing to the world.
No, it really seems like you have the hope that we've seen with kind of 3D printing. And not to put down 3D printing, they have actually changed a lot of fields, just like Glowforge can do as well. It's just being able to work with other materials, that is something that's super unique. Real quick, I mean, you mentioned a couple different products. I think there was like the Pro and then the Basic, and you mentioned things like cutting. That's no simple feat because you mentioned plywood. Talk about some of the specs. I mean, how big of a work area do you kind of get with the Glowforge? How powerful? Are we going to hear about the Glowforge Pro Elite's nuclear reactor melted down and we have to evacuate Lower Manhattan? I mean, how powerful is Glowforge? And give us some tech specs of the unit.
You bet. So there's 3 products. The Pro, which is $59.95, that can print on oversized material. So although it's the size of a large suitcase and sits on your desk, you can take a big piece of plywood or fabric, denim, paper, wood veneer, and it hangs out both sides. And then you print on it, slide it forward, and print some more. So you can print enormous oversized products. And that's a 45-watt laser. All Glowforge units can print on 11.5 by 19.5 inch area at a time. Then stepping down to the Plus, which is $39.95, that's also a 45-watt laser. Same printable area, but without the pass-through. The Plus and the Pro both have upgraded cooling and upgraded optical components, so it's really designed for shared use, like you might have in a library or makerspace, or all-day use, or for that high-end person printing at home who wants to be sure there's no downtime between prints and each print goes as quickly as it can. The introductory model, the Basic, can print everything you see on our homepage. It has that same 11 by 19 printing area. It has a 40-watt laser and is a little bit slower. So the Plus and Pro are about 20% faster than the Basic. But the Basic is an amazing introductory platform for a family that's experimenting or for somebody who wants to get into this technology and try it out for the first time. These are all designed for the home. They're designed to create things for the home, and they're designed to be safe enough for the home. As it turns out, the Food and Drug Administration regulates lasers, and they classify them. Both the Basic and Pro are Class 1 laser device, which is the same as a DVD player. What that means is there's no chance of the laser getting out of the housing. It's like a microwave. When you open it, it shuts off right away. The Pro is a Class 4 laser device. Because it has those slots to let the material go through, it also comes with covers so that you can screw those slots closed if you're not using it. And we recommend those for operation around kids with the Pro. But the Basic and Plus are both Class 1 lasers and are designed to be completely safe, like a microwave. You do need to be careful what you put in them. We sell a whole line of materials that's laser compatible. Other companies do too. But you can also, pick up river rocks, and you can use paper and all sorts of other things. You just have to be a little more cautious when you do to be sure to follow the safety instructions. When you use our materials, you know that it's going to be 100% reliable. Again, like a microwave, you have to be a little careful what you put inside. But it's designed so that any adult can use it safely, and with adult supervision, a child can as well.
Stupid question. I mean, is there any kind of I want to use the term ink, but are there like gas canisters, or are there anything to run the laser, or is that just a plug in the wall?
Just a plug in the wall. The only maintenance you have to do is once a month you wipe off the camera and a couple of the lenses with a little lens wipe, same kind you use for your glasses. And it only takes as much power as a desktop computer to run, and it only takes that much power when it's actually printing. So it's not an expensive machine to operate by any means. Pennies a day for most of our customers.
That's what we like to hear. So actually, Dan, we're about to run into the break. Would you mind staying over for just like 1 or 2 minutes? And when we come back, I wanted to touch on the, let's see, I believe it's not the marketplace. It's, I just had it. The place where you can get patterns to kind of engrave and design things. Would you mind staying over for a minute?
That sounds great.
Perfect. All right, so everyone, the music means we're going to take a break. We'll be right back with Mr. Dan Shapiro, who is the CEO of course, Glowforge. If you want to find out more about them, you can check them out, glowforge.com. And again, a link to it right there in our show notes. So everyone, stay tuned. More Computer America right after this.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
800-215-4461. 800-215-4461. 800-215-4461. That's 800-215-4461.
We are all Brother Wolf. 10 years ago, a group of locals banded together to create positive change. We took animals into our homes, held adoption events at local retailers, and talked to the community about our mission to help build a no-kill Asheville. A decade later, we have achieved so many victories for animals in need. There's been so much progress, yet there's still so much to do. As part of our year-long celebration, we encourage you to become a member of our special Compassionate Circle program. With a monthly donation of $10 or more, you will have behind-the-scenes access to the work we are doing at Brother Wolf. Our goal is to reach 1,000 members because we receive no government funding. Working together, we can help build and sustain no-kill communities. Learn more at compassionatecircle.bwar.org. We are a 501c3 tax-deductible organization.
Hello and welcome back into the Computer America Show, 32 minutes past the hour, and we are continuing on here with Glowforge. Just a couple more minutes with Mr. Dan Shapiro, who is again the CEO of the company, and very interesting conversation, kind of going forward, because honestly, this is, I'm trying to think back years and years. This may be the first laser etcher, cutter, anything like that we've had on the show. So this is pretty exciting. So Dan, thank you so much for continuing on. And actually, one more question before we get to the catalog. I wanted this one from the chat room, but they had questions about any kind of warranties, life expectancy, because $6,000 for the highest end one, or $2,500 for the entry level. Those are pretty big investments. Those people don't just jump into that. So how much use can people expect to get out of these things?
Absolutely. And that's something that, as somebody who is a parent who occasionally is looking at these sort of major home purchases, I think about myself. We have a 6-month end-to-end warranty for the Glowforge Basic, and then both the Plus and Pro double that to a full 12-month warranty. In terms of expectations, the tube is the only thing that can wear out. It's expected to last 2 years of heavy use, and heavy use is, you're printing with it for your business or your nonstop day in, day out. For home use, it can last much, much longer than that, many years to come. We'll also completely refurbish the machine and replace the tube and everything else for $499, including round-trip shipping, if you use it that well and that long. And we hope everybody does, but we know most of these are going to be for weekend warriors, and that tube will last for many, many, many years.
Very, very cool. So, all right. So, like I said, the catalog, people don't need to be, artists or, quilters or something like that to, come up with all the inspiration to really use this thing. Do you have a place, and, tell us about the catalog. Is it a place where people can upload and share? Is it strictly patterns that you have to buy, or just what's the software community component to Glowforge?
So there's a few pieces of that. One is our catalog is premium designs, which are available for sale, and we're going to make that available for customers to upload and submit their own designs, although that's not done yet, but we'll see that coming. If you buy something from the catalog, it's like buying it from the store, except you get to customize it and print it yourself. You know it's going to come out. You're not buying a project. So a design from the catalog with our materials is guaranteed to result in the thing that you purchased. So it's a really premium experience for when you want to make a gift, when you want to have something you know is going to come together in an hour. You're not designing, you're just push the button and go. But you have tons of other options. We have an enormous community forum where something like a third of our customers participate every single month. So you get amazing support, and there's a whole section of free design files there supplied by the community that you can print and go. And there's third-party sites like Thingiverse, which have tons and tons of free designs that you can experiment with, you can download, you can print, you can make your own. So there's no shortage of free files out there. I'll also say I have no design background or skill. I don't have an artistic bone in my body. I can't draw. But this tool is so powerful that you can take all sorts of things that you wouldn't think about as requiring design skill and use them to create really amazing stuff. I'll give you an example. My wife had an auction coming up, and she wanted to had this idea of coasters that had some sort of cool historical design. So we pulled up the picture of the rose window from Notre Dame Cathedral, which is from Wikipedia. And it was as simple as tracing over the picture to create this amazing, intricate design for a wooden coaster that looks like somebody slaved over it for years and years, which they did, but they were architects of the cathedral like 600 years ago. And now here, with just a little bit of work and transformation, it took less than an hour to turn this into a design that was uniquely our own. And so that ability to go and take a photograph that you took, to take a design, to take a pattern that you like, to take a picture or creation from just about anywhere, and then transform it into a product. So now that design is engraved on your spice jars or on your laptop. Now that pattern has become an organizer for your desktop, where your shelves go in, and that's the side light of it, or that's the wrap. That's a leather wrap that goes around and turns into an amazing notebook cover. That's just that easy to find that design, come up with it, or come up with it yourself, and then transform it into a real product. So it takes that need for you to be an expert either in technology or in design out of the equation, and lets you just go from the scantest of ideas to something really beautiful that you can share.
Very well said. And, again, we are running a little bit over, but that's okay. And I want to thank you so much for continuing on with us. But I think we're going to wrap it up there. Dan, I'll let you have the last word on this. If people want to find out more information, where can they go? So glowforge.com, we're shipping right now in the continental U.S. for delivery in 10 days and internationally to many locations in 21 days. This is something where you can actually transform your experience of really the way you think about things and the way you think about the world, from a place where other people do things for you to a place where you can create things for yourself, whether the thing you create is a wallet or a desktop organizer or a business or a job or a new experience for your family. I'm really excited about this, and I hope some of your listeners get to share in it too. I'm sure they will. So everyone, again, we have a link to that in the show notes. And if you're watching the video portion, we've been checking out the videos, the reviews and things like that. People seem really excited about this, and I can definitely see why. So Dan, I want to thank you for your time, and thank you for coming on to Computer America. This was a lot of fun. Thanks so much for having me, Ben. All right, have a great one. All right, bye-bye. So everyone else, we are going to go ahead and continue on with Computer America with computer and technology news. But it was a lot of fun having Glowforge on, and if you want to check them out, again, glowforge.com. Oh, and by the way, they were, according to their website, they are one of the most funded, most backed, Kickstarters out there. It was, or at least a crowdfunding campaign. So, Dan seems to be an expert at these kinds of things. And, this was certainly a very unique product. Again, it's not often that we have something on the program that we just don't get to see. So with that being said, why don't we go ahead and continue on with computer and technology news. So here we go. Here we go. So, as I said before, Computer and Technology News is brought to you by OWC, but it's a segment dedicated to everything news and newsworthy involving technology. Because, hey, we know that you don't have a lot of time to go out and look. It's our full-time job, and, we barely get to it all. So, we don't, hey, just sit back, relax, and we'll talk about some of the, pretty cool ones. And this one has been making the rounds. I think it happened Sunday or Saturday, happened over the weekend. And yeah, there was a little hubbub over France and France.com. So yeah, I think it's a pretty safe assumption that many people would assume the country would have the .com of its own name. Let's see, United States of America.com. Who owns that? That is owned by, my God, I have no idea who. That's not an official website. All right, so I take that back. Sometimes things are owned by people who, just kind of claim the name, are early, and they're good to go. And what makes this particular case a little interesting is the fact that he wasn't just a squatter. So a while ago, there was the idea, as the internet was up and coming, people would grab domain names and they would sit on them. They would keep them registered. They would put up a very simplistic website, sometimes in blatant disregard for content use and fair use, and instead just use it to sell. And, we've had situations like this come up where, let's say someone accidentally or, kind of purposely, but not maliciously, a couple years ago, registered the domain name Google. So Google.com was for a couple of minutes owned by someone not Google. Billions of dollars worth of trademarks would have went up in smoke. But of course he, gave that back, and they, rewarded him. It was a really cool story. Or cases such as Coca-Cola, I believe they had to fight for their domain name. It happens now and again where in the early days of the internet, people would grab up names that they know would be hotly contested or trademarked, or would just be, kind of wanted by very rich individuals or companies. And then they would go about, saying, hey, if you want your domain, if you want the .com, the most easily recognizable domain name that you could possibly have, you're going to have to pay me a lot of money. And it worked sometimes, other times it was taken to court. And, well, this isn't exactly what happened with France.com, because this was not simply an instance of squatters' rights. They did not register it out of the blue, and they weren't just sitting on it for no reason. He actually registered this in 1994. So if you go there now, if you go to France.com, redirects you to France.fr, FR being, of course, the French series of domains, the French, country, domain. Anyways, redirects you. So France.com was taken, and that's just about the end of it, until he said he was going to file suit. So his name was Jean-Noel Friedman, and he bought France.com from Web.com and set up a website to serve as a digital kiosk for Francophiles and Francophones in the United States. And for over 20 years, he built a business, also known as France.com, often collaborating with numerous official French agencies, including the Consulate General in Los Angeles and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So he actually dealt directly with France. And then out of nowhere, they seized his domain, and with no compensation, transferred the ownership of the website. Well, not the website. The website's backed up, and he has that. But the domain, he now has to go about, figuring out if he needs to go to franceophiles.com or something like that. But the French laid claim to it, and the French-born American is, he's suing over this whole thing. And it really, I mean, this could have been dealt with completely out of court, but when you see something and you provide no other reason other than we would really prefer to have this, this is something that obviously needs to be handled legally speaking. So they said that Web.com, the original registrar, is not a party to the lawsuit. However, the company seems to have taken upon itself to heed the French legal ruling and give up the France.com domain name without a fight. So he has something in the courts. The domain registrar that he bought France.com from handed it over, completely and irreversibly, and essentially. Now it's Jean's job to kind of get it back. It was interesting. It was weird. Probably won't see something like this again. Again, one man and one company versus the entirety of France. You can kind of see how this is going to go. But let's hope that this lawsuit, at the very least, provides some sort of compensation, because again, the biggest thing in my mind is not the fact that he was sitting on it, but the fact that he was actively using it. So yeah, he was not cyber squatting. In fact, he was simply using it for 20 odd years, and now it's a problem. Very interesting. All right. So there's that one. Why don't we go ahead and move on to another story? And this one I like, because AMD, they are a great company, and yeah, you always like hearing about advancements. And what better advancement is something that we've been hearing about in the lab for a while, but maybe not actually able to make it to market. And this may be signs that we are just steps away from being able to do this. So AMD is gearing up for 7 nanometer CPUs and graphics cards. So 7 nanometer processors. So Intel recently told investors that its 10 nanometer Cannon Lake chips won't be ready until 2019. But by then, it might get leapfrogged by its PC arch rival. And AMD told investors that it's sampling next-gen Z2 processors, Zen 2. So Zen is the architecture that's currently running. I believe it runs on I think those are on the 14 nanometer. I don't even think those are 10. No, I'm sorry. The Zen are on the 12 nanometer technology. So they're going straight from 12 to 7. And they said that the company is also testing a Radeon Instinct machine learning graphics card that uses 7 nanometer Vega-based technology. And that the GPUs will be manufactured by TSMC, and and they will eventually, presumably, be used for processors and other products as well. So, yep, let's just go ahead and, talk about some of the details, because what is the importance of a 7 nanometer form factor, die, whatever you want to call it? The 7 nanometer tech, why that's important is that when you go from 12 or 14 nanometer, you reduce that down to 7, not only are you able to do things such as squeeze more processors onto the same surface area that you would previously, but you can also do things like make them more efficient. Smaller means that they'd use less electricity to do the same things, and hey, that means that they're faster. They are they're faster, they're better, more energy efficient, and about the same price as the old ones used to be. So overall, it's just a much, much better thing to do. The reason that we haven't done it, because Intel is finding this out, it's a very hard thing to do. It's very complex to shrink this anymore, because we are getting to the point where when you're talking about nanometers and you're talking about shrinking it from 12 to 7 or 14 to 10 or something like that, you're talking about almost getting to the size of the atoms and what you can physically fit onto these, onto these surfaces. So it's interesting. AMD didn't say whether the 7 nanometer graphics tech that it's using for machine learning would come to gaming cards, but that seems to be a foregone conclusion. Obviously, if they're better, faster, more efficient, then they would put them everywhere that they possibly could. So either way, they said that AMD is finally doing things the right way, where they have turned a profit, and of course, hey, they are looking good. And there's an update to this Engadget article saying that the AMD second gen Ryzen chips use 14 nanometer tech, but they refer to it as 12 nanometer tech. So as I said, it is simply a refined version of the 14 nanometer, but hey, they call it 12. So, yep. They said that the 7 nanometer tech uses extreme ultraviolet lithography. And yeah, it will be the first chip to use deep ultraviolet lithography. And the second generation chip will contain some EUV layers. And yeah, there you go. So we'll certainly see if they can actually do this. Intel has been promising this for a little while. What they've actually been able to push out to market, as I said, coming in 2019, we've heard promises of the 10 nanometer technology coming to Intel for a number of years. If AMD can do this, this is the reason why AMD is such a good thing to have in the market. It's not that, Intel is a bad company. It's just that there's another company out there pushing the bounds, doing the research, and hey, checking what's physically possible and not leaving it up to one group of researchers. It's a good thing. So AMD, congratulations, and hey, let's see if they can actually come out with them. Although, as I said, they're probably going to be out with machine learning. So graphics cards eventually, but if they do machine learning, hey, that's another sort of win. All right, so we have time for maybe 2 more articles. Let's do some of these. All right, so this was a pretty big one because Comcast is a company that makes a lot of money off of not just internet, providing internet, but they provide things such as, television. Cable cutting is a real threat to the stability of Comcast as a business. If too much of its revenue is eaten up by one of its other entities, I was about to say tentacles, like it was some kind of evil monster. We're not going to get into that. But Comcast said that they won't give new speed boosts to internet users who don't buy television service. That's right. So they said as they keep losing TV subscribers, they have a new way to fight cord cutting. And I can tell you right out of the gate, just from the headline alone, I'm against it. It's certainly not a good thing. But will it work? Quite possibly, maybe, kinda. So this according to Ars Technica, and they said that customers with a 60 megabytes per second internet speed, of course download, are being up to 150. And the 150 are going up to 250, and the 250 subscribers are going to 400 megabits per second, or 1 gig per second, I'm sure, wherever those areas are available. And by the way, this is for customers in Houston and Oregon and Southwest Washington areas. But Comcast says that the speed increases will kick in automatically without raising the customer's monthly bills, but only if they subscribe to certain bundles that include both internet and television service. Saying that cord cutters are not invited to the speed increase party. That's what the Houston Chronicle wrote. Only those who bundle internet with cable television and other services will see their speeds go up at no extra charge. So presumably the internet-only customers can get the new speeds by paying more or by, you guessed it, bundling cable back in with it. And the article goes into some numbers here, pretty cool, talking about, not cool, but hey, the meat and potatoes of the article, where Comcast lost almost 100,000 video customers and saw revenue decrease by about 0.8%, which is primarily due to the decline of the number of residential customers. And that was its quarterly report. So last quarter, in one quarter, lost almost an entire percent, which they are blaming almost exclusively on the fact that people are getting the idea that they can do without, cable. And so they said that Comcast's net loss in video subscribers was 151,000 in the calendar year of 2017. And industry-wide, they said that about 95% of the market lost 1.5 million video subscribers in 2017. And yeah, that's what's concerning these guys. It's not about the fact that they lost so many, because when you look at cable as an industry, it's massive. It's something that I feel like gets lost in the conversation a lot when you talk about cord cutting. They say, look at this death knell. It's the end of Comcast. It's the end of traditional cable as we know it. And really, when you look at the numbers and you look at the size of what you're trying to eat away at, it's small. It's incredibly small compared to the entirety of the industry. But what it does show is a trend. It does show that instead of gaining year over year as they're used to, they're now declining by fractions of a percentage. And these companies are smart enough to know that when you stop increasing and you start to decline, even by very, very tiny amounts, that's when you have to sit up and take notice and say, what are we going to do to either reverse this or kind of adapt the business model? They're hoping to reverse it by what seems to be tying faster internet speeds, which cord cutters love and thrive on, and tying that to their cable business, which cord cutters, could rather do without, or could at least do without. I don't think cord cutters explicitly hate cable by any means. It's more to the fact that they can get enough entertainment out of strictly internet. So by tying the two, maybe they delay something, maybe they delay something, but at the same time, they're only doing that. They're not going to suddenly wave a magic wand and say, wow, you're right, I completely remembered. I love cable television, and so does everyone else. That's not going to happen. So, yep, we'll see. We're going to see a more gradual shift away from television as time goes on, I really do believe, toward more streamed content. And hey, it's just going to be a matter of how long does it take, because honestly, this all started with time shifting, with recording shows, watching them when you want, and the fact that live broadcasts probably aren't even viewed that often, now that every single cable provider provides you with a way to record, playback, pause any live programming that you want. They're all indicators that we're heading towards a streaming service. It's just, Comcast can't lose that much money that quickly. So they're trying to stop it and trying to slow it down as they pivot the business model, I truly believe. So there's that one. If you're a Comcast user, again, in Washington or in the Houston area, you may be getting cable if you want that faster internet speed. So some of the stories that we did not get to include San Francisco, and the most San Francisco problems I've ever heard. Says that they are proposing rules to fight its electric scooter epidemic. Yes, you heard it, electric scooter epidemic. So, hey, maybe we'll get some of these later on in the week, but in the meantime, we have those and more available in the show notes at computeramerica.com. Folks, again, thank you so much for joining us here on Computer America. It's been a lot of fun, and I want to thank Glowforge for joining us on the program. If you missed today's show in any part, feel free to head on over to wherever podcasts are heard, and we'll have the show up there, ready to go, ready to download. And hey, it's just the entirety of today's show rebroadcasted as a podcast. So in the meantime, everyone, have a great day. Thank you so much. Be sure to tune in tomorrow on the program as we have on, let me get this correct, we're going to have on, supposedly, and I think this is going to go through, Mr. Corey Gallagher. So it will be a Gamer Tuesday, and it will be all things video games, a lot of fun. Folks, until next time, have a great one. Bye-bye.